Hello everyone, welcome to another geospatial lecture video. And in this lecture video, I want to talk about something called local indicators of spatial association, otherwise known as LISA. Right. So in the previous module, we talked about Moran's eye and we talked about spatial autocorrelation. We went through setting up a neighborhood matrix and whether or not polygons were neighbors depended on whether they shared an edge or a vertex. And then we talked about taking that neighborhood matrix, converting it to a spatial weights matrix, and then using that spatial weights matrix in conjunction with a variable of interest to calculate Moran's eye. And Moran's eye was a global measure. So if it was statistically significant, we said that there was some form of autocorrelation in the data set, which meant that variables in one location were impacting the values of their neighboring polygons. And that was for the entire data set. So that's certainly useful, right? It's certainly useful to know whether or not your whole data set has autocorrelation. But what might be even more useful, or more importantly, what might be the next step, would be to say, okay, well, where is that spatial autocorrelation occurring, right? We know it exists somewhere in the data set, but where is it occurring? And what does it actually look like at those individual points? And so to do that, we move down from this idea of global into this idea of local. So again, local indicators of spatial autocorrelation, or LISA, right? Describe, I'll see if I can do this with a little bit better handwriting, right? Describe the how/where the autocorrelation exists within the data set. Right, so Moran's eye, that global measure, said whether or not it existed at all. This LISA is going to show you where. And if this doesn't make sense right now, I promise you after the next two videos, it will hopefully be much clearer. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about two different measures, or two different LISAs. The first one we're going to talk about is local Moran's eye. Which is going to tell you whether or not we have clustering or repulsion within a given area. The next one we're going to talk about is something called Geddes-Ord. Now, you may have heard of Geddes-Ord as the G statistic or the G star statistic. Right, and we're going to use this to describe whether or not we have clusters of high values or whether we have clusters of low values. Right, this G statistic, right, this is often what you will see when you hear people talk about hotspot analysis. Right, hotspot analysis, this is typically done with Geddes-Ord. But local Moran's eye is another useful local measure of spatial association. So hopefully this makes sense. Again, this is just sort of an overview of what we're going to talk about. And just to sort of drive this point home again, right, the local here and local indicator is saying that we now have used Moran's eye to determine whether or not we have autocorrelation somewhere in our data set. This LISA is going to give us a area by area snapshot of where that association is actually occurring and what direction it's occurring in. So hopefully that makes sense. And as always, please reach out. Thank you.